On Friday, 4 members of Congress introduced a bill to initiate the first comprehensive audit of America's gold reserves in decades. The proposed government audit comes as unsustainable government spending continues to erode confidence in the country's creditworthiness. The bill would require a full assay, inventory and audit of all United States gold holdings, and also calls for complete disclosure of all transactions involving America's gold, including any purchases, sales, loans, pledges, leases, swaps, and other encumbrances dating back 50 years. Stephen Gleason, CEO of Money Metals Depository and chairman of the Sound Money Defence League, said, "The lack of proper audits of America's gold is highly alarming and totally unacceptable. Such shoddy procedures would never pass muster in the private sector," continued Gleason, whose company operates a maximum security gold and silver vault in Idaho that is twice the size of the US bullion depository at Fort Knox. Even if a credible audit had been conducted several decades ago, auditing is never a one-and-done affair. The legislation comes as investors and nations slowly diversify away from the US dollar and treasuries and into gold, which has established itself as a critical gold monetary asset and carries no third-party or geopolitical risk. Now is the time for transparency surrounding America's gold. Only a thorough audit, not a public relations stunt, such as the live walkthrough proposed by Elon Musk and others, will suffice, said Cortez. This situation requires far more than a fun one-day field trip by politicians to Fort Knox, West Point, and other US Treasury vaults. Alistair, I mean, it's pretty serious stuff there. Got 2 questions. Do you believe that the bill will be passed? And what's the likelihood of a credible audit?
I think that the bill won't be passed, and the likelihood of a credible audit is 0. My reason for saying that is that this pressure to have an audit of the, a proper metal audit. I mean, you can do a financial audit, maybe, on the assumption that the metal is there, but a metal audit is the one that really matters. And there are plenty of people who can do this. So it's not something which is difficult to do. But the fact that from Ron Paul onwards, there has been a complete denial of the need for this by the US Treasury, I think tells us that there is a problem. Currently, total gold, according to the note on the Fed's balance sheet, amounts to something like 8,130 odd tons. Now, we don't know that that's there. We really don't. The suspicion that it might not be there, or not all of it be there, really goes back to the 1970s, when the US Treasury tried to suppress the price of gold as part of its policy of trying to replace gold with the dollar as the international settlement medium. And that was something which continued for a very, very long time. And as recently as maybe 10, 11 years ago, there were, if you like, the footprints of very large government operators in the paper markets trying to suppress the price of gold. I mean, for example, when it ran up to a height of 1920, and I think it was 2011, September 2011, it came off, it recovered, but then I heard from friends in London that they were going to hit it very, very hard, and they did, and they drove the price down to 1,040 and change. So government action has been a feature of the gold market really ever since 1971, when the Bretton Woods agreement was suspended by President Nixon. So I think I can't see that they will ever give way to an audit. And not only that, but Scott Bessent, the current Treasury Secretary, before he took office, was a supporter of having a proper audit of the nation's gold. And now, of course, he's clammed up on the story. The official bit, if you like, or the background briefing to anyone who comes in as a Treasury Secretary or whatever, is don't go there. Just don't go there. And that basically is where it always will be until the credibility of the dollar, of the federal dollar, is seriously questioned. Then at that stage, there will be decisions to make. I think it's worth pointing out that the Bundesbank's problems of getting its gold back, or just a portion of its gold back, about 10 years ago or so, that really didn't involve Fort Knox and West Point and so on. That was because those are storage facilities for the US Treasury's gold, if you like. The earmarked gold for foreign central banks is held in the New York Fed. So again, that is an interesting question. How much gold is there compared with how much gold should be there? What we discovered from the problems that the Bundesbank had getting just literally 300 tons returned. I mean, the New York Fed told them it would take 7 years to get it back. Now, I suspect the reason it was only 300 tons was, first of all, there were negotiations going behind the scenes to arrive at a figure which they could talk about. And 7 years just told us, I mean, it was quite simple. It wasn't there.
Correct.
So they needed 7 years in order to accumulate the gold, if you like, in order to deliver it in, piecemeal. And then we had the Dutch decided that, oh dear, this probably means that our gold isn't there. We'd better get it back. They had, I think, something like 1,000 tons there. But this time, the New York Fed delivered it all in one go. Why? Because they saw that their behavior with the Bundesbank was actually undermining their credibility as custodians of foreign central bank gold. But it raises the question, where did that gold actually come from?
Yeah.
In other words, did they read Peter to pay Paul?
Yeah.
We just don't know. We don't know. I mean, it's a problem, really, Daryl, that we have with governments and gold. They will never, ever tell us the truth and the whole truth. What you will get is obfuscation, concealment, and, really terminological inexactitudes, as Churchill described it in the House of Commons one day. I mean, we see this with China too. China has accumulated huge quantities of gold, but where is it? In the national accounts? At the PBOC? No, I mean, it's just sort of disappeared, but it's still there. It's still there. It's just not publicly admitted. So I think all central banks and all treasuries do this. And the ownership will only be revealed once the fiat currency system has come to an end. And I think we are in that process. We are beginning to see the credibility of fiat currencies being fatally undermined.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, there is a natural tendency of thought, if you had the 8,100 ton sitting at Fort Knox, wouldn't you just love to be able to say, come in, have a look, here it is, now go away? I mean, that would be just a wonderful response, wouldn't it? But that doesn't happen, and for the reasons that you've suggested. No, thanks, Alistair. Appreciate it.